Yeah, not really my jam. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people are
I
all about it.
recognize that it's an institution all of its own.
Man, I like every time I introduce my missus to poutine, she's like, I'm not a big fan. I'm like, how can you not be a fan of gravy, fries, and cheese? Like, I mean, welcome to another episode
She's
of
got
UpLifters.
class. Don't tell anyone in Canada I just said that. They're never going to let me back.
Right. Welcome to another episode of the UpLifters. Corey, Jimmy, and we're excited to jump on the line with Chase. Chase came to us via Austin Linney, a good friend, a collaborator. You've known him and worked together for quite some time. I'm excited to have you here. I wish Corey would have hit the button earlier because, like, we were talking about how many different words there are for yellow snow, which is fun. So I'm excited to see where the conversations go. But why don't you introduce yourself? Because, like, you're going to be much better at it than me.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So I grew up a fitness guy. My dad had a weight bench in his bedroom when I was a kid. And for a while there, fitness was the thing. Fitness was the thing that I used to go into the Navy, thinking I was going to try and be a SEAL. And got out of the Navy after becoming disenfranchised with a broken leadership structure, started a gym, and then realized that fitness wasn't really fixing people. And I started working with language and working between the stuff between people's ears, mindset, and more so the identity creation, because for any goal to become permanent, there must be an underlying change in identity. And once I started doing that, I started seeing a broader reach and a bigger impact. And the way that I approach this is quite practical. It's all in the words. We were just talking about how many words there are for things in language. Abracadabra comes from the ancient Aramaic for "with my word I create." And our words quite literally shape the perception of our reality. So while, yeah, a lot of my clients are still fitness and wellness because I'm good at it, the words that we use and the internally and externally and the stories that are shaped by those words are massive. So that's my forte right now.
Yeah, so we started doing you had me, and again, just for anybody that doesn't know, Chase is part of the team Austin brought in to basically be coaches for the Uplift core team for this year. Might be one of the smartest things that I've ever done. And you know, we started basically going through and it's been a really crazy couple of weeks. I'd have to go back to revisit it to really get a sense of it. But you basically like and you got a plan for this, right? So you basically sat down and okay, we're gonna do some story work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and I remember we, kind of focused in on a really trying time I had, early on or whatever. And I think the genius behind it is, we sort of dig into the pain of that because I think, that's an important way to anchor it. And then you basically helped me to reframe it. Right. Yes. So can you maybe like just talk about that process? Because it's clear they've got this process down. Like this is something that's in your toolbox that has clearly worked and you're good at working it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I would love to. So like when we started working it with you, we were working something surface level, something going on these days. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And oftentimes there's an emotion or a feeling in the body that comes up, and the emotional body is real. Stored trauma is real. It stays in your nervous system. It stays stored in your body. And when you come into a situation that gives you a certain emotional and physiological response, your body then remembers all the stress that you never really dealt with from teenage years, from when you were younger, from kid. And now that compounds because, well, this feels a lot like that. And you don't necessarily think about that other thing in the past, but all that trauma is still there. So it gets worse and worse and compiles. And this is where you see individuals go through something and it's a lot worse than you think it would have been. Well, because they have yet to clear all the noise from the past. So the way that I do it is we go into something happening today, something we want to address, and we'll clear that. We'll work that story and air it out. And I'd love to share that 4-step process in a minute here. And what we do is we check in as we're going through that story. Hey, when's the earliest time you can remember feeling this emotion? And we'll likely get 1 to 3 to 5 stories titled out. And we go back and we work all of those. And then we go in after we work the stories and we change the words and we breathe and we shift our perception. We step outside of our story. We separate ourselves from it. we shift our perception around it and how we see it, and we take back our ownership. And what we're doing is we're casting out the victim mentality.
This is fascinating to me, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm no Chase, but since the earliest time that I can remember, when I started reading, which wasn't always, and I started writing, I kind of combined the two. And pretty much it got to the point now where I have this huge library of books that I can't ever get rid of, which is crazy because like we live on the internet, we live on Wi-Fi, right? But all of those books are like ripped up, full of notes, highlights, underlines about what I was going through in the moment. And the only way that I could ever remember anything that I read was if I paralleled something that I was doing, right? And I came to the conclusion, with a good friend of mine, that really life is all about perspective. And so now when I read back that book and I read in those side notes, I have a horrible memory. But when I read in those side notes, I can instantly remember, the feelings that brought those words upon the paper, which is really bizarre because like it could be, talking about, Descartes' philosophy of like, I think, therefore I am. And I'm like, have side notes about, how I'm okay because I only ever ask girls out that I'm okay if they walk away because I get to watch them walk away one more time, right? Like this weird like kind of scenario, right? But like it's really fascinating that you do that, with your clients and you allow them to tap into that. And again, I'm no Chase, like I don't do it with intention. It was never my intent, but it was just something that I learned as like a coping mechanism by myself to get myself through, tough times. And before I met Corey, now he's my crush.
Well, that's awesome too, because writing something down and getting out of your head and onto paper it takes it from the mystical, the etheric, that if you will, and makes it real. And that's the first step in this 4-step story work process that I work. Is we take a story and we write it down. We write down what happened, the event in detail. And then we check in, and after each step, we'll check in, see where it is in the body, see how intense it is, if it ties us to any memories. And for anyone listening, you can do this at home. I've had people do it at home and then reach out and say, hey, now I'm ready for a coach. And this is part of the reason Austin brought me in too. I'm here for this. You write it down, and then after you write it down, you read it out loud, conversational pace. Check in again. Then you read it a lot slower. And then after that one, after you get done checking in, you read it again with the breath at each period and each comma. So you read it and then volume on the inhale, length on the exhale. So you're slowing down and separating yourself from the story, and you can take a look from the outside in.
Couple of things. Corey, were you a good student? Were you dedicated? Were you good, or did it take you a while to get into the grades?
I don't know. Yeah, no, I don't know that I was. I was definitely trying to be a good student. Whether that was actually the case or not is I don't know.
He got surprised with what we were getting into. He was unaware that we were diving into that.
It's true. I was just like, hey, it's just my weekly time to meet with Austin. We're gonna brainstorm some shit. Oh, Chase is gonna rip my unconscious open and reframe some shit.
I like it because like one of the things that I really admire and appreciate about Corey is as much as a softy as he can be, he's really determined to hold true to himself. So if you want to take him out of that element, you got to work really hard. Right. And that doesn't mean that doesn't mean that he doesn't change his mind, but he doesn't make decisions lightly, right? Like he doesn't do things. He doesn't change his mind lightly, right? So he's not one of these like wishy-washy people that like just is a people pleaser, right? Like if you want to convince him that like he's wrong or that you're right or that this is a better way, then you really have to put a lot of effort into it, right? Like how many people have you said, oh, listen to me, I'll do this, listen to me, I'll do this, right? And it's kind of annoying because you just know that they say that to everybody. Corey battles that within his own consciousness by saying, okay, prove to me that I'm wrong. I will sit here and listen to you, but prove to me that I'm wrong and do it in a way that like makes sense. Otherwise I'm more busy, right? Than that, right?
Well, I think and Chase definitely did that. And it was sort of like a bit of a digression, but one of the phrases that has held true for me, it's been a good principle to hold, is strong opinions weakly held. I have very strong opinions, right? Because they're all backed on data. But if you're doing better data, I'll change my mind in a millisecond. It's just strong opinions weakly held.
Love it.
Yeah.
And this system is built on all the right questions. So When I come in, I'm asking questions and I'm laying some perspectives out there. And then it's not me changing anyone's mind. Corey shifted his own perspective. So
like halfway through, and I think a lot of it was based. I was pretty confused early on, but like it's funny. Like I had to sort of remind myself, like, hey, you're here to be vulnerable with Austin and Chase and their team. That's the fucking point, right? Like I'm not gonna get anything if I'm like, yeah, I'm busy. I'm not gonna do the hard stuff right now. Which I wanted to do that. That's
yeah.
Like, I think I hear my mom calling, but no, like you really, this work is sort of the point, right? And so we're kind of going through it, and I'm not really, grokking sort of the pattern of it, as we kind of got into the first read of it. And, by the time we're sort of shortening the breath or whatever, and the way that you handle questions, I think, after, like, did this change anything for you or whatever, right? So we kind of go through each one of those things, and you start to see, a pattern there where even by the third one, you're disassociating from it, like it's kind of robbing it of its narrative power that's sort of hooked into your unconscious. This is what it felt like, right? And by the end of it, you're not just sort of disassociating, you're reframing. So can you maybe talk about that a little bit?
100%. And that's a beautiful way to put it. You step outside of it. And that's what's slowing it down and then putting that breath in is one, the breath is a pattern interrupt to keep us, so often it's just scrolling through our head and we'll let it keep going. The breath interrupts that. Two, it downregulates us. It takes us from this fight or flight state to a rest and digest, from sympathetic to parasympathetic nervous system response. So we separate from it. We take ourselves out of it. We downregulate the emotions. And then we look at the words. And that's the easiest way to shift the perspective is which words are we using? There are words that will put us further into the throes of a victim mentality or words that will give us this architect mentality. And a lot of those are, you have negations versus affirmations, no, not, or any contraction with not versus what we do want. Soft talk, maybe, probably, kind of, sort of, all that versus solid talk. And then projections, which are the hardest one to swallow that we're doing it, versus reflections, saying somebody else did something to me, So when we shift those words, that's where we get to truly realign the perspective.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you pointed that out, right? Because I think a lot of people in this day and age, we're so used to being able to go on the internet and get sympathy, more so than it was in past generations, where it's almost a cop-out. We're just able to say, like, oh, somebody else did this to me, right? And what was interesting, there was a situation in the blockchain ecosystem not so long ago, about a month ago, that basically shook the foundations of many people to their core. The Terra blockchain essentially collapsed. People lost, life savings, hundreds of thousands of dollars, in some cases, millions of dollars. Everyone that we knew that got hit, they picked themselves up, they brushed off their knees, they turned around, and they walked in the direction of creating shit of value. It was like, this really sucks, but, and like, Corey and I had some conversations behind the scenes with people, and we were just like this essentially was kind of what we did in a way too. Like, we weren't hit as a company really, but we knew people that were, and it's just like, these are the types of people that we hang out with, the types of people that don't blame other people, even though other people might have been at fault in that situation, right? People were always internally looking at themselves and saying, well, I mean, there were warning signs, but we refuse not to see them. Or, well, like, nothing's perfect. It was too good to be true, right? So I like the fact that, like, that we have so many friends that are kind of looking internally at how they can shape their own narrative to become, progressive, better people, and develop the space and the things that they're doing. Because, like, honestly, Corey, most of the people that we know are freaking amazing individuals, and if they quit, we're screwed, right?
Yeah, no, it's true, and I think. I wonder if it's sort of a survivorship bias, right? I mean, we've known lots of people over the years, right? The people that are still around now that, we're deepening relationships with, and, we're watching them build, and we're watching them go through the challenges of a down market or whatever, right? Those are just the ones that are left, right? There's a lot of people that we've known over the last 3 years that are just kind of ghosted now, right? And so we sort of get the evolutionary bias of still being around. And so it's true. They're badasses. Anyway, Chase, go ahead.
Oh, you're good.
Speaking of that, I have a question because I want to ask. Because Corey brings out a good point. One of the reasons that I love being in this space and hanging out with Corey is I get to see, not only one of my best friends every day, but I get to hang out with a like-minded individual. Again, which until the age of the internet wasn't really that possible.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now that, the pandemic, which we shall not speak, is over, not over, but it's winding down and people are getting used to it. And vaccinations have come out and people are being more safe. And we're kind of faced with this situation where we go back to the real world. And, to Corey's point, I think that there is some sort of kind of bias for people who found a better life during the pandemic. Not everyone did, but there were a few people or some people that did, right? They started connecting online. They started, not thinking the world is sucky and thinking about what they can do, right? But now we're moving back into that real world where, we might be partially surrounded by, people who never broke that habit. Who's that entrenchment of it being everybody's fault, or there's nothing I can do about it, right? And I don't mean to bring this up, but I think it's important for people to realize, and I'd like to know, your comment on it. What happens if you happen to be in a situation that you can't get out of? What happens if you're surrounded by all of these people who are like that? Because changing your perception and changing your bias isn't always that easy when that negative energy is coming from you from all sides and directions. And I think those are the people maybe potentially that are in most need of help, that can benefit from this thing that you're teaching, right?
100%. Great question. Two-part answer. One, if you're in a situation you can't get out of, let's dig into why you think you can't get out of it, because there are likely most of the people that are in situations they think they can't get out of, they have an out and they have a reason they're staying there. And if we can come to terms and own the reason we're staying there, it can get a lot easier to be there. Two, that old adage about you are a direct reflection of the 5 people with whom you spend the most time. I think it takes a little bit of power away from people. The 5 people with whom you spend the most time are a direct reflection of you. They're a direct reflection of your values, your choices, your beliefs, your actions, and how you live your life. So if we're putting it off that I can't change this and it's all this group's fault, oh, wow, you're just completely powerless. And then we're in the throes of the victim mentality, which is defined as an acquired trait in which an individual defines themselves as the victim of the negative actions of others, even in the absence of clear evidence. And it depends on a habitual thought process and attributions. So they're habitually attributing to this, and it depends on all of that. That's the end round answer, that you can likely change it. And when you own the fact that the people around you are a direct reflection of the choices you've made through your life, then if you want to change it, you want to change who you're around, you can change your choices.
It's interesting. I think a lot of people who use that victim mentality, who aren't generally bad people, a lot of times have another mentality that overrides it, which is basically, I have sacrificed myself for the people that are around me, right? And so it's this weird kind of push and pull type of thing, right?
Well, that's in the victim mentality. It's easy enough to recognize a victim, right? What does every victim require besides a villain? A rescuer. And if a rescuer still finds and it happens all the time on my side of the street in coaching, you see these rescuer coaches that build their worth on how much people listen to them, on whether they read that book they told them to read. And that's still going to be, that's the martyr in a sense that you were just speaking of. Well, I sacrificed everything for all these people, and that's where I build some of my worth. So it's sneaky, and it's still a piece of that victim mentality, which can be hard for people to hear. And I will say, for anybody listening to this that might be getting what victim? I'm not a victim. We all have it. I still have it. I still do the work on myself. It's there. It gets better when we shine a light on it.
What's the most recent one, especially for somebody like you that's doing this work? What's the most recent one that you can think of personally?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is awesome. Great question. So, context, my brother passed away last November. My parents, I mean, I'll go all in. I'm an open book. My my parents had the cause of death and didn't know how to communicate it to us for 8 weeks. And it got me, and it started pulling up all this stuff from the past. And I wanted to go into rescuer mode, and I was fighting it, and it was still showing up for like a couple weeks. I wanted to be the one, hey, you guys need to go do this healing. You need to do this. You need to do that. At the end of the day, like, is it beneficial? Sure. They've already started though. So for me to say you need to be light years ahead of where you're at doesn't help anything. I
Right.
actually hopped on with one of my buddies that practices similar coaching to myself, and he helped me through that to understand that that was me trying to be a rescuer and placing my ego ahead of my healing. And that I had a massive opportunity to give my parents credit that they've come as far as they have. Because what was coming up for me was a lot of old stuff from childhood. And my ego was trying to take that and make it like, well, they're doing the exact same thing. And they're not. They've both made a lot of ground. And when I healed that, this was just this last Saturday, I was on with my buddy, and I cried. You know, I was like, oh, wow, I have this massive opportunity to give my parents more credit. We went out to dinner with them on Sunday, and it was the best conversation I've had with them since before my brother passed. So
Awesome.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I think that's one of the things that like I struggle with and a lot of people struggle with, and like nowhere near the intensity of that situation. But I'm looking at, you know, moving back from Japan. I've been here for 20 years, and, you know, going to stay with my parents so that like they can get to know my grandparent, my, you know, their grandkids, right, for an extended period of time. They've got a massive house, but you know, any house at one point in time was too small. It didn't matter whether it was a 14-bedroom house, right? Like we just we, you know, they used to always say like, you know, we love you, James, but like you're the worst of both of us, right? And like they're not bad people, they're actually really nice people. But like and I get it, right? Like but at the same time, like, you know, they would sometimes commend me on being the best of both of them as well, right? Like it was that kind of fiery thing. And it's funny because I just went through a thing very similar where like I actually realized that, like, you know, probably the last 20 years, I've been labeling them as not accepting my growth while not plugging into the fact that they've grown as people too. Right? Like, so does that make sense, right?
Yep. Dude, that's awesome. Like, great awareness to pick that up right there. Like you took a projection and flipped it back on yourself into a reflection. And that's powerful. Like, kudos. That's awesome.
Man, I don't know where we found you. I kind of do, but like, I like the fact. So this is the other thing too, is it's like, this is Corey knows, like, you know, he's heard this countless times before as well, but I don't know if I've ever heard it before I met like you and Austin and these other people. I like the fact that you buy into your own product. I like the fact that when you have a problem, you go to another life coach. You're like, dude, I'm screwed. Help me, right? Like,
Yeah.
Thank you. It's I was an angry, angsty teenager. Like my dad caught me smoking when I was 17, and it's the first time he ever put hands on me, put me up against the wall. And then I tried to separate from the situation. He was angry, and I ended up hospitalizing him. And there were other instances where, you know, like my anger got the best of me, and it's been a journey. And I appreciate you seeing that from this conversation that I'm picking up on that I do the work, because I do, and I enjoy it. I cried my face off on Saturday, and then I took a nap, and I felt a whole lot better.
That is good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I after the week I've had, I definitely have some of that coming. Thankfully, it hasn't been. So, hey, I just want to show you. Hey, we're in the Austin Linney team freaking build in DGen 1. And just for fun.
That's awesome.
So,
I look so happy right there.
You're in it.
I'm there. I'm there. Love it.
In it.
I mean, it's perfect. If you've ever, like, you know, ask Austin about a conversation he's had coaching me, and that's pretty much the look that captures it.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'm in survival world, so I got my leg and head armor on.
So
that's funny.
I don't know if you do this or not, Chase. And you're free to say no. But a lot of the things that you're saying resonate with me because of things that I've read and because of things that I've kind of went through myself. And again, I'm no Chase, so I'm sure what you're doing is far more deep than I can even imagine. But when the time is right, I have a bit of an issue that I've been sitting on that I'm wondering, maybe we just do the whole session live. maybe we just throw it out there and we show people, what your coaching sessions are like. Like if you're free or if you're available or if that's something that speaks to you, like I would love to be a test case for that, or not a test case. I didn't mean it that way, but like I would love to put myself out there and. It's not going to be today. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be next week because we got shit to do. We're busy. But like when the time is right, and the sirens come for you, will you please?
Hey, when
I
you're
think
ready, and I will say, as far as busy, if you're doing these shows every week anyway, I mean, if the opportunity presents itself and when you feel called, I'm here for it, man. Yeah, if I have the ability to share, because we work off a Google Doc. So if I have the ability to share a screen, it would really give everybody an idea of what's going on with the language and the stories.
You definitely do. And I'll volunteer too. God damn it.
Oh man.
I just think like the whole thing that, I started streaming the second there was a go live button on Facebook. I started streaming music. Yeah. I knew there was some stuff in the space, right? That's when I started like just doing coffee on the dock. And that's literally all that show was, but we ended up getting sponsors. What are you gonna do? Right? It was weird. And what I decided early on was that, if going live was gonna help even one person, maybe, then I should do it. And that's why the Sunrise, I had a bout of pretty real depression before we moved to Miami and started dealing with that. And I was doing some cognitive behavioral therapy, which, this reminds me of, a lot of basically just like functionally, retraining, rewiring your brain. And, it's a practice. And, I was leaving that and, but I was doing pretty good. So, okay, well, we're going to live 6 blocks away from the sunrise or, from the ocean. So I'm just going to go to the sunrise basically every day, just for the foreseeable future. Right. I set like a goal. Hey, I'm going to go for 30 days in a row, which I did. And then I'm like, yeah, why would anyone stop doing this? Which of course, like I did. I'm an idiot, but it was amazing. And I ended up streaming live and people asked me like, why are you streaming it live when you could just sit in this? I'm like, well, I'm here. I have a phone. If it helps one other person have one little moment of clarity, why wouldn't I do it? There's just no downside, right? Other than like a tiny infinitesimal bit of work on my part.
Absolutely. It is. I love that you brought that to light because every once in a while, thank you for putting the site there. I have my personal coaching program, which is aimed at guys who want to be proud of the man in the mirror. And I have some female clients too. And when my intake slows down, sometimes I'll get in my head, right? Like any of us will. We do that. And then I'll get a message from someone like, hey, that story you put up today got me off my ass into the gym. I'm like, oh, cool. So yeah, sharing that good message is so huge. That's awesome. Yes. Also, I love that you're both volunteering because that'll be so powerful. Like Corey, you've already, I do believe, Corey, that we still have a couple. We have a couple titled out and ready.
Yeah, we have work to. If you want to start in between, we probably should because the idea of it makes me deeply uncomfortable.
Hey man, let me know.
But
we'll get scheduled up.
I think it's a good idea because it's like I just demystifying all this stuff is something that I feel pretty strongly about, right? Like the people might come in and sort of see us. Now everybody just kind of sees us head down or whatever, right? But in 6 months, everyone's going to be like, oh my God, Uplift is kicking ass, blah, blah, blah. Like we know what's going to happen. Like it's not, hard to see because we're going to go make it happen, right? But then people, I think sometimes come in and see us in that context and think like, I'm never going to be able to achieve that because like, look at these guys, all the crazy stuff is happening. And of course, like, Jimmy and I have been around the whole time. Like, a good 90% of it was like, oh my God, we're all gonna die. Like it's hard, right? It's a little bit not exactly true, but like there's a lot of work. There's a lot of moments of doubt. There's a lot of having to band together and finding the right people, and then right.
Yep.
And that personal growth journey is just it's an intense part of it, right? And still, so if we can do anything like that to the point where somebody might get benefit out of it, and we're gonna be doing the work, right? Like I have every intention of freaking benefiting from that in real time, right?
Yeah.
So
100%.
Thought you were on a beach in Tahiti.
Wasn't it Italy? So there's this like and I mean it's
hilarious, and it deserves to be told. We're not going to dwell on it, but it's pretty flippin' funny.
It's so funny. So we have like this is where we really draw on the phrase "haters gonna hate, potatoes gonna potate."
I love that.
Yeah, dude, it's so good. It just cracks me out of it every time I start. Like, 'cause we have some pretty hilarious detractors. They do us the service of being batshit fucking crazy, which checks out. Anyway, so there's like this wax scam thing on Twitter, and they basically just like shit on projects all day long. It's kind of what they do, right? And so they basically were on us because like we're not decentralized enough for them. Even though we have 600 holders, right? So we've started with the team having enough to basically pass everything, which any project that doesn't do that will fucking die fast. Just like figure your shit out. But people don't understand that sometimes, or they want to criticize or whatever. So that's how it started, fine, right? In the comments, very quickly, because this is going to attract, this kind of energy is going to attract. I mean, frankly, I don't want to say the dumbest, most unhinged people on earth, because there probably are more, but holy crap. So apparently, Chase, we're actually all in Italy. The whole core team is in Italy right now, spending all that money we don't have and never brought in. And you can track all this stuff on chain, but they won't do that. And we're basically just showing up to work and grind our asses off all day. Maybe we actually just have AI doing that. We're not real. This isn't real. This is just AI avatars that we've hired or created to do all of this insane work for 18 hours a day while we're on the Amalfi Coast in Italy or something. It's just like the shit people come up with. It's just
you're missing a key point though. There was a point in time where you were playing a guitar on a beach in Italy though, right? Like way back in the day. Did I misunderstand that?
So I've never played guitar on a beach in Italy. I did go to a little my wife and I had our like honeymoon there 5 years after we got married, right? So we did go to Italy. We were in Rome at a little bed and breakfast. Would love to go back there and work from there, frankly. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I didn't have a guitar, although she ended up finding this like hole in the wall pub that is like one of the, I hope we get to go back there at some point. It's just like this tiny little like basement thing where it just was way too cool. And they just had a guitar there. It's just like, hey, my husband's going to play a couple of songs. I'm like, it's okay, fine, whatever. So I did play in there, and it was magical. And the place ended up filling up, and they were like, who the fuck are you? I'm like, oh, my name's Corey. Right? It was just like, that was the whole thing. But never on a beach. So, again, I have touched a guitar in Italy once, which I suppose makes this true.
The internet is great, though. It really is timeless, right? Like it's amazing.
Oh, man.
Yeah, they're just time traveling when they're talking about you being in Italy. That's all.
Oh yeah, so these are time travelers from the future that have seen me playing guitar on a beach in Italy.
Yeah, exactly. Time is imaginary. It's just this construct we've created to be able to live our lives.
I mean, so that's true.
Yeah, that's 100% true.
I like the fact that you think that, and this is gonna sound like I'm poking fun of you, but I'm totally not, because I'm gonna go back to like this whole thing about perception and perspective. But I like the fact that you think that so many things that people believe in as a die-hard standard for life are imaginary. You think time's imaginary. You think vocabulary is imaginary. You think all of these things are imaginary, right? And it really speaks to the way that you have shaped your own mind.
I mean, everyone in this sort of ecosystem that gets past like a grade school education in crypto understands that money is imaginary. It's a story that we tell, right?
I mean, yeah.
Right. And so like the fact that like basically, Chase is just doing, a couple, three more, but it's the same, that same idea. You break all of those things so that you can construct them from first principles. And I mean, the most successful people in history have always done that.
100%. And if we want to go to the quantum physics side of things, where everything is vibration, well, sound is vibration, right? So the way that we speak and the inflection upon which we put on the words, like that's going to affect our reality if everything is vibration. We can go all the way down that rabbit hole, or we could go more easily digestible with the reticular activating system, which what kind of car do you guys drive?
We have like a little blue Jeep.
So when you bought that blue Jeep, what do you got?
Yeah, I drive a Mazda coupe.
So when you guys bought those, you probably likely started seeing more blue Jeeps and more Mazda coupes on the road. Noticing them. Yeah.
So perception is everything, really, right? And this is funny because I live in Japan. And Japan is brilliant in a lot of ways, but Japan is the king of manufactured economies. So if you have a car that's 2 years old, you have to pay a ton of government money to get it, recertified so it's on the roads, which is one of the reasons that Japan has low pollution, right? Everyone wants a new house because you can get deals, right? Everyone buys a new air conditioner for the house because to move your old air conditioner from your old house to your new house costs a ton of money, but the service installation fees are free, right? So in answer to your question, no. Like, this is funny because it's a completely Western mindset. In answer to your question, all I see since I bought my 10-year-old car, which had amazing low mileage, a perfect maintenance record, is all new cars, and looking at them and thinking, you idiots, this car is the best car on the road, right? It's really fun. Like, seriously, come to Japan and stay with me for a month. Like, I know you're a mindset coach, but like, it's bizarre what like just living in another country or another culture can do, because like now I think I'm brilliant because I'm an American and I shop cheap and buy used when it's the best deal on the market because they are really so cheap here, right?
I love that. And it's still a beautiful example in that construct of the reticular activating system. So like the little blue Jeep, you started seeing more of them because your mind was focused on little blue Jeep. Now, on the flip side, in Japan, you started realizing how much money you saved by driving that car because that's what you were focused on. And the same thing, words will do the same thing for us. And you guys touched on CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Mark England, who created this system, he studied under the people that created NLP and studied CBT and EFT, all the acronym,
what's EFT?
Emotional freedom technique with tapping. And he studied under Byron Katie, who's just a master in projections. If you guys want a way to clear some noise in your head, Byron Katie, her work, Loving What Is, that book. And then she has a book, 1,000 Names for Joy, which is her take on the Tao Te Ching.
Nice.
Yeah. Those are a couple pieces of recommended reading depending on the client that people will get from me. So
to be fair though.
Let's hear it. Be fair.
To be fair, I recently decided which car I'm going to buy next when I could afford it.
What are you getting?
When I decide where I'm going to go. And so I'm completely against the North American SUV culture idea because, I got a family of 4. If I ever meet Corey and his missus, I want to go somewhere and I want to take the same car because that'll be fun. But most SUVs in America only sit 5 people, right? But like Americans, they hate the minivans. They're not cool. So I've actually driven one and I've seen them more since I've decided to buy one. I see them everywhere now. To your point, is the Mitsubishi Delica, right? And I'm like, these things are just monsters of vans. And so like to your point, it's like I've made the decision that I'm going to buy this, and it's like now I'm looking around and I'm like, these are everywhere, and I'm going back to Canada. I wonder if they're everywhere there. Maybe I can get a good deal on a used car, right? Like
so that's the whole reticular activation system. Like that's like it's so real, right? And I think, and I'd love for you to speak to this, Chase, but I bring this up a lot, right? Like our brain is a filter that's taking in 2 million pieces of information every single second. It's ridiculous. We're conscious of basically none of that, right? Mm-hmm. And so there is, the reticular activation system, that it's a filter, right? It's basically figuring out and deciding for us, chunking for us what data we should be seeing from all of the crazy inputs that we're getting from, vision, sound, taste, the whole 9 yards, right? It's basically getting it down to a tiny pinhole of experience that we're actually going to be conscious of, right? And so the whole point, I think, to what Chase does and what Austin does is like you could do a lot of work on that filter that will dramatically change everything about your life. And for me, like the vibration stuff and all that stuff, like that's very interesting, but I think people can kind of go down the wrong roads thinking they understand quantum physics, when basically nobody who's way smarter than me understands quantum physics. So I assure you that you don't, right? So but that mental thing, that machinery is just hardcore fact. Like, it's just real.
100%. Yeah. I like to toss the quantum physics out there. And if anybody who even has a half grasp on it, tried to have a conversation with me, they'd likely blow me away. It's a fun little nugget.
But I think it's good to think about it in terms of the fact that, like, one of the most serious, theoretical physicists in the world is talking about the fact that at the bottom of quantum physics is just consciousness. And everyone in physics is like, maybe. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, I know, but there's this connection now between science and consciousness, or if you will, spirituality. People are like, science is bringing in what some people consider spirituality, and it's really interesting to watch it unfold.
Yeah, it's fun. Anyway, so did you? I'm sorry, I kind of like jumped on the reticular activation.
Good.
I'm super fascinated, but like, is there anything you want to add to that before Jimmy starts talking about NFT coupons or something?
No. Like, I have something that I want to say.
Okay, I'm sorry, Jimmy, go ahead. I'm sorry, I just couldn't resist. It's
ridiculously relevant. I'm wondering if you this is a 5 or 10 part question. I'm not really sure yet, but like, have you ever read the book The Universe in a Single Atom? By the Dalai Lama. I mean, it's a brilliant book, and one of the amazing things that the Dalai Lama actually did was he figured out a way to synthesize science and religion that made sense, right? Like, we've got all of these kind of mind over matter types of people in the East that the Western, society hasn't really recognized until recently, and even now it's still a hard breaking point. But I had the honor and the pleasure when I did my postgraduate degree in Hawaii to study with a friend of mine named Tom. And now Tom was the son of a very well-known scientist in the States. He worked at Stanford University. The University of California, Berkeley, California. And the guy's name was Paul Ekman. Now, Paul Ekman happened to be very close family friends with the Dalai Lama, which is really bizarre. And the reason he was close friends with the Dalai Lama was what he actually studied that kind of made him famous was pantomimes, essentially, right? Like, he was one of the first people to go to Papua New Guinea and realize that there are a certain number of physical human traits that transcend culture, that transcend language, that transcend borders, right? Like, certain things, certain physical attributes on people's faces that had never encountered outside society would still reign true when a person was lying, or when a person was nervous, or when a person was this and that. And so long story short, my friend who was a young child at the time, he used to get Christmas cards basically from the Dalai Lama, obviously, who is a Christian, and they co-wrote a book together. Basically talking about the synthesis of like hard science and religion, and it's really quite fascinating when you break it down from an Eastern sense, right? Like, that whole ideology that we can kind of potentially prove all of these crazy religious ideas that could not potentially be based in reality is starting to come to fruition, with the advance of science, right? It's much more than you should believe in God because you might go to hell if you don't, right? Like, we're kind of at that point where we've got like some really brilliant people working on some things that are kind of blowing our minds. That there wasn't even a question; it was just a 10-part statement. I'm sorry.
Okay, beautiful. I'll be reaching back out to you for the name of that book so I can add it to the list. I'm currently working through a 5-part series right now, so. I have books just stacked up because I get on calls like this with awesome individuals like yourselves, and somebody drops a book and it gets added to the list and it goes in the pile back there and the waiting to be read. And yeah.
My backlog is epic. If it wasn't for audiobooks, I just wouldn't. I'd be screwed. Andre, I DM'd you on Twitter about some other stuff.
What people don't know is the only reason that Corey works so hard is because he's so engrossed with learning more information that he needs to make enough money to be one of the first people to have MindLink.
I mean, I hadn't actually considered that. And the thing is, like, I don't think I'd be first, but I will be early.
How early?
When I'm satisfied that statistically it will be safe, probably, right? Yeah, I mean, like it like I want to go to space on, you know, one of the SpaceX big fucking rockets, because I think people would be crazy if they didn't, but I don't want to be first. Right?
You don't buy the A model.
Right.
Yeah. Don't be first or 13. Is it 13?
Yeah, no, I think 13 we could probably just wait one, just do 14. why chance it? No, I mean that, and they'll, you know, they won't have any human flights until they've done, you know, 18 gazillion unmanned ones, just like they did for the Falcon 9 series. But that kind of thing, I think pretty early, right? I mean that the thing that we're, you know, looking at now, for the people that are plugged into technology, they are achieving a kind of escape velocity compared to everybody who's ever been alive in the human species that isn't. And, you know, I love being a part of this, you know, upswell. And, you know, eventually there will be, I think, a bifurcation in the human species over the next couple hundred years between people that get on the wave with the advent and the increase in AI, that is going to be the whole story over the next decade. And then there's going to be everybody that doesn't. And, you know, I think if you don't, that'll be fine too. Like, I really do. You know, I think it's just going to be the kind of experience that human beings have never had before. And I'm just hungry for that.
What do you think that looks like on each end for somebody who hops on board or somebody who doesn't?
So for the people that hop on board, I mean, we're building it now, right? Like, we're building the metaverse. We're sort of building the strata where we can be part of something that basically your imagination is the only limiting factor, right? And, you know, we're going to go from, you know, Ready Player One, you know, where I don't know if the suits are ever going to be around, because I think, you know, the Neuralink is coming pretty fast, I think, comparatively speaking. So yeah, I think, and just speed, you know, the ability to, you know, process a lot of these things and whatever at ridiculous speed. So it can get to the point where just crunching the math on that, you know, somebody born today might end up having the experience of having lived hundreds of lifetimes before 2050, right? Because it's all, you know, just being able to process faster can give you relative time distension. So, and what does this look like in a couple hundred years? You know, I think the people that don't go along with that are, I think, going to be able to live the whatever kind of life they want. I think there will be a much stronger floor underneath them. I think struggle is absolutely a part of the human experience, so we don't want to take that away. And I think for the people that keep plugging in, you know, I think we're going to merge with the AI, and you know, I don't think there's going to be necessarily a huge distinction between, you know, artificial intelligence and artificial super intelligence and the rest of us. I think it's going to be very symbiotic. But then I'm a bleeding heart optimist, so who knows?
So what are the chances? This is a fun question. What are the chances this has happened before? And we're already, simulation theory,
right? Like there, okay.
Yeah. You heard what Elon Musk said about this.
Yeah,
taking everything we know about video games and where they were even 30, 40 years ago, right? And the you know, progression of technology being exponential on a bad day, and the speed of it. You know, if you pay attention to Ray Kurzweil, the speed of the increase is itself exponential. So you've got exponential times exponential, which is just stupid fast, right? Knowing that, the likelihood that this isn't a simulation is billions to one. Now, like, it doesn't matter, right? It you know, functionally our lives go on the same way. But yeah, no, I think it is actually more likely than not that that's exactly what this is, especially considering they start finding all that weird fucking hackable code in the actual physics of the universe. Like, fuck off. Like, it's just weird.
It's interesting because, like, basically, like, you know, what we have deemed through culture and society and civilization is the great forgetting. Right? That's essentially.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you look at things like those weird serendipitous manifestations, if you will, I was listening to a playlist the other day working out that I hadn't listened to since 2019. A coach that worked for me that helped me build that playlist, 4 hours later, we hadn't talked in months, messaged me. Like, just weird, when we were buying this house, my wife's like, yeah, I want a tree in the front yard, tree in the backyard after we move in. We didn't know landscaping came with the house. And you know where the trees were that came with the house? Right where she wanted them.
Yeah, so there's a really interesting, again, like one of my favorite books of all time. I haven't read it in a while, and it's a little bit out there, but like if you've ever read The Celestine Prophecy, right? Like you talk about
guys,
like various.
I hate to do this. The same thing.
We knew it was
the
coming.
Same thing that shows you your car over and over again for positive-minded people.
Right.
It's survivorship bias. You're only going to remember the times that had that sort of synchronicity feel to them. If you cultivate that, or if you calculate that based on all of the other experiences that don't have anything to do with that, what you have is random chance.
However,
but it's not as magical to think that way. So I get it. Like,
no. However, if you are a believer in higher energies that control the universe, whether they're mathematically sequential, whether they're like, I'm not talking about gods. I'm talking about being able to tap into, you have a dog that makes sounds that you can't hear. Sometimes when you're looking at your dog, he's making sounds that you can't hear. Why did you look at him? Right. Right. So like, I think that we like it kind of, I hate to do this, Corey, but we only really tap into a certain really small fraction of our brain, right? So what if we let our brain release, and what if our brain is tapping into things that we're unaware of? Right. And I think that's a very big possibility.
I love that. Also, the giant spaghetti monster that you'll consciously be able to magically perceive based on exactly that logic that lives behind the moon. You just said something like, what if magic is real? It's literally what you just said.
No, I didn't.
If you use all of your brain, we already are. If you use all of your brain, we're already doing that, right? If you tapped into the quantum physics reserve of love and vibration in your nipple, then you'll be able to perceive.
Went that far with it.
No, you're completely. So there's a.
Also, I wanted to introduce you to Brian. He's making noise right now.
Brian, you're completely misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm saying language isn't the only vehicle in which we can communicate, right? Like we can read people's faces, like we can read other things, right? Like we can perceive. I'm an honest and true believer that we can perceive energies. I mean, which way those energies flow. I mean, and then my favorite example of this is a tree. Like we all know that, like, trees are trees and mushrooms are mushrooms, and mushrooms are pretty freaking stupid. I mean, they can't get up, they can't walk around, they can't speak, they haven't created language, they don't have dictionaries, they can't use the internet. But I was
gonna say, you're messing around with the wrong mushrooms.
No. But mushrooms, what you can't see below the surface, have this amazing ability to be able to tap into some weird consciousness that doesn't even exist within trees and pull nutrients from up to 3 to 4 miles away back to that tree root system in some kind of weird symbiotic relationship, right? Now, is that knowledge or is that biology of survival? I'm not really sure, but if trees and mushrooms can do it, we can do it too.
I mean, we are doing it. We're much better at it than they are, right? But yeah, no, that I think qualifying that as consciousness and information transfer, I don't think you can do anything but that, right? There is an intelligence there. It's not an intelligence that we would teach to a 3-year-old human being, but it's clearly making choices that have at its root values that just a strict survival of an individual would not dictate that, right? And the mushrooms being that and the what do they call the stuff underground that connects all of them? I forget.
Mycelium. The mycelium
Thank you.
network.
Right? The mycelium network, right? Like it evolving into this thing that becomes and feeds off of this, creating this network for these other things. And then the values of like the tree automatically protecting some of its young or whatever, right, of that particular species, right? So there's so many things that from and you can tie it all back to evolution. Like you can make an evolutionary pathway for all these things, but it is still intelligence in the same way that a very simple order human would have it. And at scale, like it's a thing of immense beauty. Like it really, like that shit is just real. There's no magic there at all. Like this, we live in a universe that's fucking full of awe.
I mean, it's probably more intelligent than me at times.
I mean, I also have been smashed. Wait, not to pivot. Okay, and of course, by
Pivot.
not to pivot, I'm gonna pivot. At some point, Jimmy and I have decided that we're gonna end up taking a bath together with a bottle of scotch. And
Yes.
and when we do that, we definitely.
I spent 2 decades in Japan, so it's normal.
Right?
Kind of.
Yeah,
I
we
thought
will
you were gonna
definitely be
say with
less intelligent than a mycelial network at the end of that experience.
After that last foray, I thought you were going to say with a couple grams of mushrooms, but
I mean, don't threaten me with a good time. Okay.
So
a couple.
We haven't done gratitudes. I think that we should do that. And also,
that. I didn't have the game pulled up.
I don't know. Like, so I like communicating with people on a level that they're not expecting to be communicated with. And I'm probably going to fail at this because like you have a whole group of friends that, you can communicate with whenever you want. But in the spirit of an open book, Chase, because I'm sure none of your clients ever ask you this. I want to ask you, what is your present ambition and goal in life? What do you want to achieve? Where do you want to go? What do you want to look back in 20, 30, 40 years and say, I'm proud that I set that goal and I achieved it?
So my daughter will be born, my first child, in October. And my current goal is to live a life creating freedom for myself and my family while also creating so much impact for others that by the time she has the ability to perceive what life is, all she sees is that we have the ability to create our own lives.
Awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for the chase of knowledge with Chase.
That might even fit.
Nice. Appreciate you.
Yeah. I'm grateful Chase is going to achieve his goal.
What a guy.
That's what you do. All right.
Did you put Chase's up?
Not yet. Chase, what are you grateful for?
He already just told. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I've confused goals with gratitude.
Yeah, you did.
Imagine that.
If you're going to confuse those two things, I think there's probably some inherent value in having some confusion between gratitude and goals. There's something to well, isn't it? Wouldn't you say, Chase? Maybe it's worth kind of pausing here for a second. I think there's a lot of strength in encoding that filter system with being grateful for the achievement of goals. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's one way that we reprogram individuals' reticular activating system when we're setting goals is to set them as past tense.
Yeah.
Like, in July 2022, I launched another cohort for my program and filled it up. Boom. Things like that. What I'm grateful for in this moment was this awesome conversation. This was a blast.
Honestly, man, you're welcome to come here anytime.
Yeah,
please join
100%.
us anytime. I mean,
Thank you. Yeah, I'll take you guys up on that.
Do it. Cool beans, broheems. TC, I got yours as well. We did the thing.
Beautiful.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Corey, we're pretty. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I love going down these rabbit holes. We should do it all the time.
This is very interesting because I was going to say a similar thing. Like, we're pretty good at like finding the most amazing people for a show that usually we cover blockchain that aren't really plugged into blockchain. Like our non-blockchain guests are some of the most amazing humans on the planet potentially, right? I love it.
Appreciate that.
That's really awesome. So yeah, thanks for joining us, man. If you have any parting words, but come back monthly, if you want weekly, come back whenever you want. Like seriously, I mean, it was great. I second you.
TC's seen more of our shows than any other human who exists. And he had this to say.
Yeah, I saw that. Thank you, TC.
So I mean, that's that.
Yeah, I'll take it. Thank you.
That's some ridiculously high praise. Yeah, so we should do it again. And then we'll get into the work and
oh yeah,
be all vulnerable and shit.
That'll be TC's new favorite show.
Probably.
Yeah.
Boy, here we go. All right. So yeah, we'll just fire you the link, Chase, and you just pick. I don't care if it's 2 days from now. Let's rock and roll.
Rock on.
Jimmy was saying we actually have some opening slots later on in the week. So if you want to be aggressive, we'll just sign up to be your guinea pigs.
I'll take a look at it. I'll get on there as soon as I'm able to.
And honestly, congratulations, right? Like I just had a young son and I've got a 2-year-old who is the bane of my existence at times, but also the most beautiful thing that has ever happened, right? So it's gonna be great, right? Like you got a few months to prepare yourself, but I'm sure you're gonna be an amazing dad. I'm sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be wonderful.
Yeah, it'll be a blast. We're taking our I won't be on this week because we're taking our baby moon this weekend. So
nice.
It'll be fun.
Get the hell out of here. Go.
Rock on. Later, guys. Thanks.
Thank
we'll
you
catch
so
you
much.
guys on the next one.
Thanks.